Junji Ito is the LeBron James of horror stories. No, like, seriously. He manages to create the scariest scenarios that you wouldn't ever expect. Stories like Snail Girl, The Human Chair, and of course Uzumaki. Still, even then, I think there's a story that isn't spoke about nearly as much as it should be. Junji Ito's Gyo. Just like the three stories I mentioned, it's another example of his strange horror, combined with a story that is weird for even his standards. Walking fish machines taking over the world and infecting humans with a strange gas germ? Yeah. Oh, and of course, I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't mention the walking robot zombie shark thing. Yeah, that's a thing. So today, I want to walk through this story with you all. From the mysteries to one of the more uncomfortable forms of body horror I've ever seen, this is Junji Ito's Gyo. Oh, and I've also randomly decided to do one of his short stories at the very end of this video, as if I don't talk about it here, I don't think I'm ever going to get a chance to talk about it, so yeah, that's at the end. Anyways, I'll get straight into it. Of course, thank you for watching, and well, just please enjoy the video. We open to our main character, Tadashi, deep sea diving, when all of a sudden something just whizzes past him. Something so fast that he couldn't even get a clue on what it was. This attracts the sea life in the area, most notably sharks, them quickly chasing him out of the water. Back on the boat, we're introduced to Kaori, his girlfriend, her saying that she wants to return to shore as the scent of the sea has really made her feel sick. Tadashi noting that she has always been particular to smells. Once they step off the boat, they walk through the fish market, not only noting her sensitivity to smells yet again, but zooming into some particularly stinky fish. This makes sense though, because if you didn't know, which I imagine you didn't, Gyo means fish, so I think we're gonna see more fish, and we started in the water next fish, so fish manga. Back at their vacation home, the couple get into a fight, causing Kaori to storm out of the house angry. Tadashi then cools off for a second before going out to search for her, finding her fallen and terrified as she points to something in the grass. And just like in the water, it whizzes past them, so quick that, well, they couldn't even see what it was. Kaori then freaks out. The area has begun to smell terrible. Tadashi noting the same as he walks home, saying the smell is rotten. Everything smells now. Inside, outside, I said everywhere. Prompting Kaori to shower and Tadashi to look for something to freshen the area up. But upon returning home, Tadashi opens the door to find the scent exploding in his face. Not only making him sick, but when he finds Kaori, she's out cold. He then notices a whooshing sound and tiny taps, them coming from upstairs. As Tadashi corners whatever's making the noise, he's frightened by some sort of sharp leg, it causing him to jump back in fear and whatever it is to go to the other side of the room, now hidden behind a cabinet. In a panic, Tadashi does some quick thinking, pushing the cabinet as hard as he can into the wall. And as he sighs in relief and pulls the cabinet back, he screams, revealing a fish-like creature with robotic legs, them molded to the fish, joined by tube-like appendages feeding into the creature's gills, causing him to ask the only logical question: what the hell is this? That concludes the first chapter of Fish, or Gyo. And I think we can definitely understand why it's called that now. And although it's not really scary, it's definitely a bit unnerving already. The big reveal of this creature after all the hints we've gotten throughout the whole chapter. The thing in the water, the fish market, and it whirring past them multiple times. I honestly probably could have assumed, and I think anybody could have assumed, that it was a fish with legs. But still, it's shocking, because thinking of it and imagining it and actually seeing it are two different things. And when you actually see it, it's just ew. But then I also want to make sure you remember the smell. Something we can only assume came from this creature. I'm not even gonna call it a fish because what the hell, but they keep mentioning this smell. It's a very big deal and I guarantee you they're making that smell. So we'll just keep an eye on that. Tadashi takes this strange creature outside, noting its weird nature and thinking that, well, maybe it's some sort of undiscovered species. But now that it's dead, well, he can finally take care of that dreadful smell. He returns with duct tape in a bag, sealing the creature inside and taping it shut to prevent the scent from leaking out. And upon noticing the bag is kinda twitching, he just smashes it with the rock, because, you know, that'll kill it, right? Surely it's dead, right? Back inside, he comforts Kaori, who seems to be getting sick, now running a fever, before she says she wants to go home tomorrow. And considering I'm only reading this story and Tadashi's actually living it and I'd want to go home too, well, he agrees and says we'll go home tomorrow. Smart choice. Later that night, Kaori, feeling worse, questions if Tadashi really did get rid of that creature. She still smells it, and after saying that he left it there because it could be, you know, an undiscovered species, Kaori freaks out. This prompts Tadashi to head outside, check the spot, and find nothing. Before, in typical horror fashion, Kaori screams. The creature is back, though now floating in the inflated bag. And as the two of them begin to scramble throughout the house, it appears to only want to chase after Kaori. The creature chases her until it falls into the sea. And as Tadashi checks to make sure it's really gone this time, a handful of the creatures come out of the water and scramble through the bushes quickly. In the morning, Tadashi tries to report what he's seen, but of course the officer's not buying it. He sounds crazy. Especially though because Kaori won't say anything. She then yells at Tadashi, her very angry at him for yesterday before passing out, ultimately still very sick. We then transition to a fishing boat. The fishermen have begun to pull up tons of the fish with legs, but it's not just the fishermen that have begun seeing these creatures, as they've begun to pop up on shores, and we're not talking tiny fish like before, but, well, a shark. We see a shark version has come out of the water and has begun to rampage the shore, which, okay, I know this is meant to be like crazy what is even happening, but like, you can't tell me this is not the funniest thing ever, dude. I know it's meant to be like terrifying, but imagining a shark with, you know, tiny little peg legs chasing people around, like, in my mind, I'm thinking the Jaws shark and it's just got legs, okay? I'm sorry, that's terrible, but back to Tadashi and Kaori. Well, that shark's outside their window. And I would like to note that it looks very hungry. We then see a top-down view of this thing, and, well, whatever's happened to it, it's uncomfortable. It's held up by these strange legs, and it has these tubes pushed all throughout its body. Almost like it's been modified by some sort of mad scientist. Obviously, both of them are really freaked out. Kaori especially, as the smell has really begun to mess with her. And as they scramble around the house, the shark breaks in. Now trapped in a storage room, Kaori asks Tadashi to fight the thing. And well, in response, the shark just busts down the door, chases after him, and flies out of the window. Strangely, as they look down at the now what they assume to be dead creature, its legs twitch, as if the legs are alive and the creature itself is dead. We then pick up a bit later in Tokyo, things having gone from bad to even worse. The walking fish epidemic has gotten even worse. These creatures plaguing Japan's islands and causing millions in damages as well as numerous deaths. Though, what set an alarm off with me was the mention of the smell, which we more than know of course comes from these creatures. But they describe it this time as a dead body. And while I didn't mention it earlier when they called it rotten, but is this not a bit weird? Comparing it to a dead body especially, would you not just say fishy? This bothered me, as I know, at least to me, the smell of like rotten fish, the fish smell, it is very clear. If you smell fish, you know you smell fish. And therefore, at least to me, I think they'd say that instead. I would say that if I smell fish, I would say fish. But instead, they decide dead body. And I can only assume that means that not only are these fish dead, but maybe they're not even just dead fish. Oh, that's terrible. Tadashi then visits his uncle Koyanagi, who's an inventor, apologizing for his house that they're staying in being destroyed. His uncle doesn't really care, but is more interested in what Tadashi said. The house was destroyed by sharks. He doesn't watch TV, so Tadashi has to explain the four-legged fish epidemic to him, something that seems to really interest him. I mean, I kinda get it, but I don't know if I would be more scared of the fish or if I'd be more interested. I don't know, I don't like to see that much, but I'm off topic again. Tadashi then heads home to find a distraught Kaori, saying she can smell them again. Tadashi rationalizes this as her dealing with trauma, her having a hard time of ridding the event at the island from her memory, in turn imagining the smell. As he tries to get her to calm down, it gets worse. Her saying it's near before running out of the apartment in fear, and as she falls in the street, she looks up. It's coming this way. The bag containing the original legged fish is floating through the sky. Kaori then runs in fear, but just like the first time, it follows her. And as the two of them duck into an alley, Tadashi can only question, what's going on? Did that garbage bag come all the way here from Okinawa? It then falls in front of them, popping open to reveal a rotten fish carcass. Though even then, the creature appears to live, the legs still moving. The next thing we see is Tadashi bringing the creature to his uncle Koyanagi's lab. Him shocked to learn that the bag somehow inflates despite being completely sealed. Upon opening the bag and being ambushed by the smell, Koyanagi turns, saying he's encountered this scent only once before asking if Tadashi has ever smelt a human corpse. He asks this in a way that confirms what the scent truly is, before explaining that he only knows this due to the fact that he found his dead father. Tadashi then leaves the creature with his uncle before heading home with the spooked Kaori, her now fearing that the creatures have made their way to their apartment. Upon opening a cabinet, she imagines one of them running out, but in reality it was just a cockroach. So it's all over, right? Well, no, not really. That night, Tadashi wakes up smelling the same exact scent that Kaori's been smelling. This event taking us straight to the lab where we see Koyanagi dissecting the strange fish. The first thing he does is clean it off, but upon running the fish part underwater, it completely breaks apart, the flesh sliding right out the bones and the bones just cracking to pieces, leaving only this, a robotic-like creature with strange tubes and spikes. And upon putting his hand closer to check it out, we learn what the spikes and tubes were really for, as it latches straight onto his hand. As Koyanagi writhes in pain, the spikes dig deeper into his arms, and the tubes also come to life. This creature appearing to be some sort of parasite. I have no other explanation. The next morning, our couple wakes up to news reports that the legged fish could be in Tokyo, then quickly receiving a phone call calling them to Koyanagi's lab. Once there, Tadashi's uncle tells an uncomfortable story. He explains his father's death, describing how he specifically wanted to be cremated, not for a specific belief, but rather it's like he hated the fact he'd smell of death. Don't you think that's strange? Who would care how they smelt after they're dead, let alone let it bother them? He then tells of an ominous tale his father told him before he died. His father was a scientist during a war, when all of a sudden he was transferred to an uninhabited island near Okinawa the very place this story began. On this island, they developed biological weapons, and after numerous failures, they discovered a new strain of germ. A germ that would produce an incredible amount of gas within those subjected. Strangely, this gas would also inflate them, but more alarmingly, its smell. Smell of rotting human corpses. So foul to the point where the researchers found themselves getting sick. Illness brought upon new ideas, the scientists soon trying to create a weapon using the germ-infected creatures. Though, whatever was infected would deteriorate far before they could fulfill their purpose. This is when Kodanagi's father designed a walking machine. A machine that propelled the germ-infected creatures using their gas. A bizarre but perfect weapon. Though, upon transporting the new weapons, the ship was sunk, Kodanagi's father being the only survivor. Hearing this story obviously disgusts Kaori, her running to the restroom to discover boils now growing on her skin. Upon uncomfortably exiting the room, she discovers yet another one of those creatures, and upon Tadashi running to her aid, it's revealed to not be a fish, but a human hand. Of course, this is Kodanagi's arm. Him having no choice but to amputate it as the fish's germs would have spread throughout his whole body. And well, look what happened to his arm, he made the right choice. Strangely though, it was him who took this a step further, admitting to sticking tubes in his arm and allowing the gas to freely flow through his arm. The creature seemingly coming back to life in response to this. He then took it apart, describing it as organic even though it's made up of tubes and metal. Saying this only really seems possible because the germ itself is alive, it using the gas to create this machine-like body. He then confirms that all the creatures roaming the country are these machine-like things, before saying that all the creatures, the fish on top of them, well, they're more than likely dead. Ending the scene saying he has truly no idea where these things could have come from, but there's no doubt in his mind that whatever his father described is right in front of their very eyes. Not only is Kodanagi beginning to seem like your typical mad scientist, I mean, who experiments on their own arm before cutting it off, but this whole thing, this whole idea terrifies me. These creatures, powered by a germ of all things, a germ that takes control of things and makes them into this like machine-like creature. It's not scary per se, not traditionally, not scary really at all. But what gets me is the fact that there is no rational explanation for this. This is impossible. That impossible force, this impossible scenario is changing things in ways that I couldn't even imagine. And that, while not scary, is still a bit scary to me. Right now, it's only a hand, and, well, a lot of fish. But we can't forget that it's a Junji Ito story. So of course, me and you, we all know that this is going to turn into something involving them, the humans. We next see Tadashi as he watches the news. Reports filled with death, chaos, and sickness, causing him to worry. If the cause is these germs, surely people are also getting infected, not just animals. Worried, he then goes to check on Kaori, her room being mysteriously filled with the stench. And upon removing the blanket from his girlfriend, he discovers that she's been transformed and infected by the germ. Like the creatures we've seen, she's begun to decay, as well as spewing this death-like scent everywhere. And I just have one question. Junji Ito, what makes you think of this? Because what is that? As Kaori freaks out at the sight of herself in the mirror, we hear a news report. The walking fish are pulling a full-scale invasion. So many machines that I'm having a hard time doubting that they were all from that sunk ship. I mean, we see and hear that there's literally thousands of them, and some of these aren't tiny little fish. No, we saw huge ones like the shark, we see a whale. It's just insane and it's not possible. Tadashi, hearing this, looks outside to see them flooding the streets, turning his head to the side to see Kaori trying to jump off the balcony, her unwilling to live in this infected state. She cries out in pain and grief, not only incredibly uncomfortable, but upset. Fearful that Tadashi will leave as she can't imagine him liking her now in this form, prompting Tadashi to urgently call his uncle to see if he can do anything to help. As he steps back inside from his phone call, he finds her hanging. And in a sick and uncomfortable scene, we see the gas spew and push her around the room till she falls, urging Tadashi to pick her up and rush her to a hospital. Now this is very weird. I won't say it any other way. It's weird. And since Kaori is now infected, we know this is gonna go on to happen to a ton of people. I really do think there's something to be said here though, that such a childlike idea like gas or, well, farts, is beginning to change humanity. A childlike idea is changing us into something that it's like not even imaginable. We don't even know yet. To some, it's silly. You can completely disregard it. It's a weird Junji Ito story or whatever. But to me, that almost ironic feeling that a kid's joke, some silly kid's gag, is becoming this. It really gets me, especially because I don't like looking at like body horror, human transformation horror, things like that. It's something I don't like. And that little contrast and comparison between like a kid's joke, it's something that's always stuck with me when it comes to the story over the years. As he runs through the invaded city, Tadashi just narrowly escapes a shark again before ending up at his uncle's house. His uncle promises to take Kaori to the hospital, but wants Tadashi to go check on his parents, as he's not been able to contact them at all. Tadashi then urgently rushes through the destroyed streets, moving quickly until his leg is grabbed by... yeah. They even have an octopus in this thing. I can't imagine this many machines going missing, especially one that would fit this thing. This octopus drags him around, smashing him up until he throws him over a railing and falls into a drain channel. Unluckily enough, well, it's filled with all sorts of things, prickling him and drowning him into the sea of these unimaginable creatures as he just grows weaker and weaker. Ready to pass out, Tadashi looks up to see a cloud of spirits. He then wonders, the germ was developed during the war to be a weapon. Could it potentially be composed of spirits of the dead? They then reach towards him wondering if they intend to take him to their world. But upon noticing Kaori's face, he remarks, "You're beautiful again," before passing out. He wakes up in a hospital, quickly learning that he has not only been out for a month, but that the whole world has become consumed by these creatures. Even things like the smell, what was the worst part, has become completely normal. The doctor then speaks about the disease the creatures have brought, but strangely Tadashi seems completely unaffected, him then instantly remembering and asking about Kaori, just to learn the hospital had never heard of her. Tadashi then steps outside to see a completely different world. Everything is destroyed with little in sight, and what he can see is the military fighting off the creatures, prompting Tadashi to quickly run to his uncle's lab. His uncle, notably looking sick, tells Tadashi the terrible news that Kaori has died, the infection taking everything from her. Later that night, as Tadashi grieves, his uncle's assistant confronts him, saying she can't lie anymore and that he needs to come with her, then revealing a frightening panel showcasing how far from humanity Kaori has become. A scene that, it just makes me incredibly uncomfortable. He then cries out in shock, "What is this?" prompting the assistant to apologize and explain that she has been in a coma for the last month. But even then, to Tadashi, that doesn't even explain the machine. Kodanagi then walks in, incredibly angry that Tadashi was told of this, but since he's now found out, he introduces him to what he calls his walking machine. As Tadashi screams at him, Koyanagi explains how it works. Him pressing a button causing the gas to circulate and the machine to power on, allowing it to walk on its own exactly like the creatures. He then goes into detail, saying that the secret is in the germ itself. The germ feeding on a creature's living tissue to create gases. A gas that can somehow power these whole machines as if they were living creatures. This cowrie monstrosity being proof that this germ has some sort of mind of its own. Understandably feeling angry and betrayed, Tadashi runs towards the cowrie machine, and as he attempts to pull out one of the tubes, the machine rampages, impaling Koyanagi and rushing outside into the storm. He then runs after her through the now ghost town of Tokyo, finding rotten fish machines, ones exploding from the gas pressure, and most alarmingly, humans now stuck in the creatures. He even witnesses it happen, it being such a quick transformation he can't help but sit there in awe. He then witnesses what might be the worst sight of all. One of these creatures walking down the street housing dozens of humans. Which only makes me think that this germ is farming us. Taking us, transforming us, and harvesting us, using us to create more of this gas and infect more and more creatures. Which is... I hate that so much, I hate it. I'm having a tough time thinking about it, that's all you need to know. As this thing blazes past Tadashi attempting to take him, the spirit-like gas attempts to come after him yet again. But somehow, despite the size of the cloud of spirits and, the amount of them, he's able to escape just fine. And upon sitting down to take a breather, it gets weird again, as he begins to hear carnival music. He quickly stands back up, noticing the creatures have begun to move to some sort of strange rhythm. And as the music begins to peak, he notices a circus tent. With no other option, he heads inside to find Citrus Circus, with it featuring attractions of the legged creatures performing circus acts to the music. The curator then walks forward, saying that he hopes Tadashi takes these dreams with him to the dream world that they'll all be heading towards, before describing the circus's events as the march of another world. He then tells that the flutist's lips don't move. Rather, the gas comes from their mouth in a rhythm. Then, that the acrobats move to the rhythm of the gas, not based off ability, before proclaiming that the gas actually came from another world. And the simple truth is that everything on Earth has fallen to natural selection. He then brings out a cannon packed with humans infected by the gas. And upon firing it, the soul-like cloud appears, saying that those who can see its true nature will know how truly terrifying it is. He then does the same with a human flamethrower. An uncomfortable scene as the now flaming souls-filled gas consumes the sky. But rather than show the humans like we've kept seeing the whole time when we've seen these spirits, it shows these inhuman demonic creatures. The curator explains it as the true face of the death stench that has consumed our world, before bringing out the final attraction, which is revealed to be none other than Kaori. Yet again, I think it's such an ironic framing by Ito here, that here, in a circus, a place of fun, we learn that this germ may not be any old infection, rather something potentially out of our world. Like I said earlier, a childlike idea, a gas epidemic turning people into disgusting, crazy creatures. Something I think only a child could imagine has now been taken into something further. He's presented it as a nightmare epidemic, one that transforms people into these disgusting body horror images. And well, when did you choose to reveal that it wasn't just any old infection? Well, in a circus, a place that people go to have fun and a great time. It's perfect. As the circus performers involve Kaori in the act, pulling her side to side and attacking her, she fires back before running off. prompting Tadashi to jump on top of her and find the switch to turn off the machine, finally allowing him to bring her back to the lab. Upon knocking on the door, it opens to his uncle's assistant, her visibly upset and then breaking down as she reveals Koyanagi is dead. Him dying upon being impaled by Kaori's machine, asking her in his final moments to bring him to the lab so that he can die peacefully on his own, just like his father. Tadashi then asks her to help him remove Kaori from the machine, as while she may not mentally be in this world anymore, he refuses to allow her to stay this way. In the lab, they remove the tubes, her flesh now decayed beyond belief. And though it may be hard to face now that he's actually seeing it, Tadashi understands that she's been dead for a while now. Kaori struggled with smells, to the point that when this gas invasion happened, she quickly found herself not being able to take it anymore. But even then, she couldn't just escape. She was turned into a battery for a twisted machine. Tadashi now wants better for her, choosing to set her free and cremate her, mentioning that they should probably do the same for his uncle. Yet as they mention his name, they hear a loud whirring sound coming straight from the lab he died in. Confused, thinking maybe some of the creatures have found their way into the lab, Tadashi breaks into the pitch black building, and as he looks up, he finds none other than his uncle Koyanagi. The gas machine then powers up and flies straight out of the lab, and as the doors open, it's revealed Koyanagi has done the unthinkable, turning himself into a blimp-like gas-powered machine. As the two of them look up speechless, Koyanagi fires upon them, forcing them to flee into the building next to Kaori. They suspect that he might be after them out of jealousy, assuming they're together now that their respective lovers are gone out of the picture. And funny enough, the thought to be dead Kaori seems to think the same, seemingly coming back to life as she slowly moves her arm and presses the button, powering the machine on. She chases Koyanagi's assistant out of the building, allowing him to easily pick her up in his weird flying machine and take her away. But the noise has seemingly alerted a mob of the legged creatures. For what I can only assume is because her machine isn't real, it's artificial, made by a person, they attack Kaori and tear her to shreds, her stretching her now freed arm towards Tadashi as she's mobbed. Meaning that deep down this whole time, she probably was conscious, even if not aware of her actions or what she's doing, she probably was still alive and understanding what was going on. Meaning everything we've seen happen to Kaori this whole time, she has lived through and acknowledged this torture. Which is just, oh, that's a terrible thought. The now very distraught Tadashi is walking the streets telling notices that cannonball machine from the circus. And just like they did to Kaori, they attack the now flying Koyanagi by shooting cannonballs at it. But I guess he planned for this, revealing a new pair of wings that allow him to just fly even further. To me, this is basically saying you can't stop this invasion, the world is gone, and this is seemingly enforced as we next see Tadashi just look over everything, there being an endless wave of these disfigured humans marching, them marching till they basically take over the whole entire world. And as Tadashi just sits there, defeated, thinking about how this even started, how crazy it is, he's suddenly joined by a group of non-infected humans. They weren't man-made. There's no other answer. A state-of-the-art laboratory couldn't have built 600 of them, let alone 6 billion. No human could have built them. They must be self-replicating machines. Maybe it started on the microscopic level. A bacteria that makes the gas synthesized with the wrecks of deep-sea battleships. A machine created by Mother Nature. The group then reveals themselves to be researchers, and just like Tadashi, they appear to be immune. Tadashi joins them as they reveal they plan to fight back by creating an antivirus, And as he begins his new journey, Tadashi comes across the destroyed burnt corpse of Kaori. He asks for some alone time, finally ready to say goodbye to his partner. Kaori, you're finally free from the smell. The story ending as he stares at the now apocalyptic world filled with strange creatures, it no longer resembling an earthly city at all. Now, I honestly don't think this is a traditional horror story, but not all horror stories need to be scary in the same exact ways. And I think Junji Ito's body of work is a perfect example of just that. Some of his most uncomfortable stories are super out of the box when it comes to horror media. And Gyo is the perfect example of that for me. With the correlation between simple ideas and the grotesque body horror being something that really shook me up despite not being that scary. For as long as I can remember, seeing people disfigured and morphed in ways that you don't even want to imagine, things that aren't possible by things we have here every day in our lives, has terrified me beyond belief. Ominous big eyes, super long limbs, or just seeing a person become something weird and wrong in my mind it always gets me, and it's probably the weirdest horror thing that will always scare me no matter what. Anyways, all that to say, this story does exactly that. Showcasing humanity becoming attached to these things that might as well defy the laws of nature as we know them. This attachment disfigures the people and allows them to grow into things that we can't even recognize. It's literally the definition of that horror I was talking about earlier. Something I've said multiple times and something I think is clear by now, I think it's disturbing how simple this story is, it being comparable to something a child would easily think of. The world is basically dominated by some potty humor joke. Yet these childlike concepts are built up in uncomfortable ways by Ito, that being what really disturbs me. The idea that a simple gag can be taken by Ito and transformed in terrifying ways, like for example, when it's confirmed that Kaori is basically conscious the whole time, meaning that every one of these things that we see as a human, a creature, an animal, well, they are still living, they're still conscious, but they're trapped, forced by these things to just be farmed enough until they die. And then these machines themselves, silly fart machines, bro. Well, what is this dude thinking? Anyways, but these creatures, they appear, they're silly. There's tens of them, okay? There's hundreds, stretching it a little bit. And then we learn that there's billions of them, which literally is impossible. There's no way this many of these things could exist. It's then apparent that these machines aren't even really machines, rather new organisms fueled by a germ that makes no real life sense. It's an impossible concept started by a silly joke that is changing the world in ways that aren't possible. It's terrifying. In the end, I don't think it's Ito's best work. Still, I think it is one that people tend to ignore for many reasons. And even I'll admit, it looks like a zombification story with a childish concept, not really scary, which is what most people will read Ito's work for, the scares. Personally, I think Ito's best stories are tense, they're ominous, and they leave you with the feeling that something is missing. Something is so wrong here, you can't explain what's so wrong, but you know there's something wrong. Something is defying everything that we know. And to me, those are his best stories. And well, Gyo fits into exactly that. Even if it's not the most serious, it's not the most outright scary, it's not the best drawn story he's ever made, I think it's terrifying in its own ways, and I wish people would talk about this story like they do Uzumaki. Though I will say, that's an unfair comparison because that's a great one. And while I would normally end the video right here, I still want to touch up on another one of his stories. A quick, short story that somewhat has a correlation to this story. Now for a little bonus. If you were to pick up the Viz edition of Gyo today, you would get the Enigma of Armigara Fault bonus story at the very end. And while it's a short story, it's definitely sweet. Well, definitely not sweet in that way. It's a Junji Ito story. While definitely not as strange when it comes to body horror as Gyo, it's definitely unsettling and uncomfortable in its own way. And since I realized I'd never get a chance to talk about a short 15-20 page story ever, I just decided I'm going to include it at the very end of this video. 5 little minute section, or however long this ends up being. So, let's begin. A short-haired woman, Owaki, is climbing a mountain when she finds yet another climber, Yoshida. It then being revealed they're both looking for something called the Fault. They describe it as a wonder of nature, something the whole entire world has become fascinated with. Something that appears to be true is when they reach the mountain, they find a weird big crowd of people around it. Them all looking at this. A flat sheet of rock with human-sized cutouts. We then see researchers checking out these rock human formation things. Confused that size-accurate human cutouts that are like longer than 30 meters in depth, by the way, could even exist. They're surely not natural. That's literally impossible. But then that begs the question, who made them? How were these even created? But back to the girls, Yoshida reveals why she's here. I saw it on TV. I know I saw it. One of those holes. It was in my shape. It was identical. No, it went beyond that. That hole was my silhouette. A man then runs up behind them, him being sure of everything she just said, saying this identical hole phenomenon is exactly why everyone has come. And now that he's finally found his, he walks up to his hole, forcing the girls to slowly watch as he disappears. That night, he still hasn't returned, and upon falling asleep, Owaki has a dream about what situation he's in. Him being stuck in the hole hundreds of meters deep with no hope of ever returning. She then wakes up to learn that he still hasn't returned, but more uncomfortably, Yoshida has found her hole, saying that they dug it for her. Another man then jumps into his hole, causing Yoshida to just have a meltdown, screaming, saying that no matter what, she has to enter her hole, and that if she does, well, she's destined to die inside. In order to calm her down, Owaki covers her hole in rocks, blocking it and making it so that if Yoshida did really want to enter, it would be really difficult. Though, in my mind, I don't know how that's stopping anybody. This is a real random but unsettling concept. Holes have been unearthed. Strangely, these holes are perfectly human-shaped. But for like modern humans, meaning that whenever these holes were created, assumingly like thousands of years ago, they were made for now. Which, maybe I'm dumb here, but that is not possible. One thing that Ito kinda tries to hide from you here though, is that there is child-shaped holes on this mountain. Meaning that these ancient, I was gonna say people, but maybe it wasn't even people, meaning these ancient things made these holes for not only fully grown adults, they made these death traps for children. We then see the girls spending the night together, Yoshida far too afraid to spend the night alone. And as the girls drift off to sleep together, we see Owaki have another dream. She dreams of a time long ago, in a position where she's a prisoner sentenced to death. Though this execution is pretty strange, her being forced into a human-sized hole that was specifically made for her. The tunnel was made in a way that prevented her from ever moving backwards. It's slowly distorting as she goes on, stretching and disfiguring her to the point where she no longer resembles a human when the dream ends. She then screams, waking up from the nightmare, and looks over. Yeah, Yoshida's gone. And upon rushing to the hole that Yoshida thought was hers, well, the rocks are gone and there's no sign of Yoshida. Owaki sits down in silence as she realizes what's happened. and as if by supernatural intervention, her flashlight is knocked over to shine upon one certain hole. She stares at it for a second. This is my hole. And as if captured in a spell, she slowly descends into the dark, human-shaped tunnel. The manga ends a couple months later, explorers finally finding the other side of the fall. Though, on the other side, the holes no longer even resemble people. Upon shining a light inside, they find something. A nightmare image of something, some mass moving towards them. Something that you and I can only assume is a person that's been distorted and destroyed by this hole in the same way Iwaki dreamed. This one is just chilling. It's creepy. I don't know how else to say it. I think it's another great example of how Junji Ito is so good at taking a simple concept like holes in the wall and making it into something so terrifying. This being one of the better examples, as he was able to do this whole thing, make you feel that level of discomfort and put together this full-fledged feeling story in 15-20 pages. I have nothing else to say that I haven't really said. This is a great story, and I just couldn't help but share it with you all. Anyways, that is like for sure the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. These videos are fun and I'm enjoying a great change in style in how I'm recording them, being mostly on camera, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. The manga videos have been fun and people are watching them. So other than that, I have nothing to say other than, well, another thank you. I'll see you next time. This has been Junji Ito's Gyo and the Enigma of Armigara Fault. I may have said that wrong, but anyways, end of the video. I'm not doing another take of this. It's an outro. Goodbye.